Welcome back to South Africa Tonight. Of course, we are monitoring the situation in eThekwini, where the vote is currently being counted. That's after parties did cast their ballot for that mayor position. It's very contentious in eThekwini, might I add. I know that Gauteng had its fair share of drama, but in eThekwini, we actually saw it start on Monday, then there was a postponement. It started again this morning. There were several interruptions, but now we've reached the point where the vote counting is currently underway after lots of back and forth. And Dasen Thathiah is there in this meeting for us. And Dasen, I've been looking online at all of the concerns from the other political parties as this vote counting continues. Let's talk about the concerns from the smaller parties, because Makosi Kosa from Action SA is also saying that there needs to be a report into the interruptions that happened on Monday, not just today.
No, definitely. In fact, many of them have raised concerns. The DA writing to the Speaker saying that they wanted an investigation into why they had those interruptions on Monday. I mean, Shahan, let's think about that for a second. If this venue exists and this is one of the premier facilities in the Durban area, the question that they're asking is a valid one. And the question is, why then was a tent outside the Moses Mabhida Stadium used in the first place, one that lent itself to such things? Because that was why they had to use the generator. That was why they had those power failures, so they had intermittent power. So it raised all sorts of problems, and that's what they want to find out. Why was that done? Makosi Kosa from Action SA going as far as alleging that perhaps someone got a tender for that, and that's why they had been given that opportunity to put up a tent outside the Moses Mabhida Stadium. These are some of the things that they will have to look at. The Speaker opened this particular council sitting with an apology, apologizing for that, apologizing for a disruption, he said, by a group of people. The IFP's Mdun Kosi coming in there and saying, no, that wasn't a group of people. Those were ANC members, and let's call it that. And that was his view. So it had to start with an apology for that particular reason. But what we're waiting for now will be a report. That report will have to be finalized to look at all of those things. So to look at why that facility was used. And also, I think importantly, Shahan, how then was a group of people allowed to get past the barricades and the security that you normally find at these types of council meetings, particularly an inaugural sitting like this one, where you have all of these councillors here and where the leadership of the municipality is being elected?
Yeah, definitely. And, I mentioned Makosi Kosa. I think it's important that we hear from her since we actually had her on camera earlier. We'll keep your visuals up. We'll talk to you in a moment, but let's take a listen to what she had to say.
It is absolutely important that at the next council meeting, we get a report from you as to why was this particular venue not used in the first instance. Why were we subjected to a marquee? Who got the tender for the marquee? So that we can understand whether it was deliberate, because we are a new administration and we are seeking to do things differently. We are here to rescue eThekwini Municipality.
Yeah, and she's raising really important questions. But I suppose the big question that is in people's minds is, if the council sitting had not been disrupted on Monday, would we be seeing a very different configuration? Has it in effect bought some time for the ANC, maybe? What are the rumours and the suggestions going around what exactly happened on Monday?
I think that can't be disputed, Sal, that it certainly has bought some time. I mean, in the time that we've seen, what is that, 2 days? Today's Wednesday. In that time, we've seen the resignation of that ANC member, the EXCO member, in fact, which then opened up the door for Philani Mavundla. So certainly it helped on that front, because that could potentially be helping the party get those extra votes that it needs. So they offer 2 votes here potentially, because the ABC party has 2 seats. In fact, while I'm talking to you, I'll just keep glancing off to my right, because that is the seat where Philani Mavundla normally sits. Obviously, he's out of the venue right now as the vote counting continues. But I'm certainly watching out to see if I can sneak in a word with him when he comes back, because it would look at this point like some of the smaller political parties are unhappy. Just just as that announcement was made, the ANC had to announce who its other EXCO member is after that resignation. When the first ANC members were announced, and then that name of Philani Mavundla came in after that, I heard distinct shouts from the opposition benches of sellout that followed after that, because they genuinely believed that he would then be on the side of voting with the smaller parties, the ABC being a small party itself. But clearly that had changed. So to come back to your question, Sal, then I think those 2 days assisted in that regard, and it's assisted the ANC with a potential lifeline here.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've seen this happen in hung municipalities before. We've seen small parties even get mayorships because they end up being the kingmakers, which is why a number of people are saying that the system's not quite right and needs to change. In Gauteng, we know that the metros and the DA is very likely going to be looking at full sort of multi-party representation in the mayoral exco, because that probably is one of the few ways to keep some sort of unity. Do you have any idea on what the configuration will look like post this vote result, or is it all going to boil down to the mayor, who under this system has a lot of power and will call the shots?
Well, let's look at it this way. So there are two potential outcomes here, obviously, considering that there were these two candidates, Xolisi Kaunda and Nicole Graham. So the ANC and the DA fielding their candidates here. But in order for the DA to get their mayor into that position, they would have to rely on these other parties. Key among them is the IFP, who has said that it would also work towards getting the ANC out here in the metro, and that's why they had changed tact. But in order to do that, it would effectively mean that if Nicole Graham became the mayor, the deputy mayor would potentially come from the IFP, and that would be Ndu Nkosi. So there's the potential there. And then if the ANC's Xolisi Kaunda, who was the outgoing mayor, becomes mayor once again, that opens the door for Philani Mavundla to potentially get into that position. The speaker, Thabani Nyawose, is an ANC member, and that was where the accusation from the IFP had come from, saying that Nyawose was not able to distinguish between his council duties and his party duties. He made that allegation during this meeting earlier, and he accused Nyawose of being biased. So these are the potential outcomes, and that's what the structure of the leadership of the eThekwini municipality could look like post this meeting.
Let's talk about the leadership of that that metro for a bit more, right? Because we know that Xolisi Kaunda took over from a very controversial figure, and that is Zandile Gumede, who was ultimately kicked out of that position by the party because she does face criminal charges. How has he done? Has he done the ANC any favors? Because many would argue Zandile Gumede is a reason we've seen the ANC support in the metro decline.
So Xolisi Kaunda was almost a safe bet for the party to bring in at that time, and I think by many people's standards, with all of the controversy that was attached to Zandile Gumede, bringing anyone else in who was not going to attract that kind of controversy at that point was the ideal choice for the party to make, to let things cool down, so to speak. So Kaunda has not had any major scandals attached to him or attached to his name over the time that he's been here. Admittedly, he hasn't been able to serve a full term, so it would be premature to judge him completely on his capabilities as mayor at this point. So potentially this would be a true, potentially a full term for him if he does come in as mayor now. So I think to go back to what you're saying, Shahan, after what those in Durban and in the eThekwini Metro had gone through under the leadership of Zandile Gumede. And when I say gone through, I'm talking about all of the scandals that was attached to that leadership. Things have been certainly a lot quieter over the past 2 years or so.
And you know, Dasen, and for our viewers just joining us, what you're seeing on your screens at the moment, votes have been cast for a mayor for the eThekwini municipality, and it's between the DA's Nicole Graham and the incumbent Xolisi Kaunda. There's been a fair amount of drama, and certainly it seems quite a lot of horse trading with the addition of the ABC leader Philani Mavundla, who will possibly take up a position on the committee if the ANC's mayor has his way. So, we're looking at this in very minute detail, but if we pull out for a minute and look at what the city has gone through, its tourism sector devastated by COVID-19, hopeful of a recovery during this festive season. We've seen the awful July unrest, which also caused massive damage to infrastructure, loss of life, and a loss of confidence in the city, it has to be said. And it's also a city that's been mired in corruption, which, as Shahan said, is exactly why Zandile Gumede is facing a trial over that solid waste tender. And it's so crucial that the right team runs this city. Talk to me about how Durban is doing. Is there a sense of hope that this could be a new beginning? We've seen the beautiful adverts for Durban tourism, and there's a sense that the city is really struggling to get back on its feet. Talk to me about the city itself and the people of the city and how they're feeling.
I think, so, there's a sense of excitement, there's a sense of anxiety, and I say this from engaging with people on social media, from talking to people around us, and there's a different mood. It's for the first time, the outcome is not guaranteed, and that seems to excite people. But then at the same time, it's the fear of the unknown. What if the next government, if not the ANC that comes in, what if it's worse than the current one that they have? So there are those concerns and those anxieties around that. And understandably so, knowing what we went through. You know that there were also criticisms at the time about the leadership, or perhaps the leadership that was too weak during the unrest and what transpired in our city and created that perception of how violent it can be at times like that. There are all of those concerns, but whoever comes in today will not have an easy task. In fact, to quote Nicole Graham, who I spoke to earlier before this council meeting started, she said to me that even if she comes in as mayor, it needs to be understood that she cannot fix the city overnight. She can't fix this metro overnight. She can't correct all of the things that are wrong with it. And I think the same would then be said of Mxolisi Kaunda, who, if he wanted to then prove himself and prove that he is able to lead the city for a full term and undo some of the problems. Because we also can't deny at the same time, Sal, that there has been a growth in certain sectors. There have been projects that have been launched under Mxolisi Kaunda. There have been improvements in the city. It just seems that a lot of it was overshadowed by what we all know and what we've seen over the past few months. So, we can't get away from that. But either way, whoever comes in today is going to have a tough job, to win back the trust of Durbanites, and secondly, to fix all of the things that are wrong with the province's only metro.
Yeah, it's such an incredible story, because this is basically those citizens who are speaking out. They just didn't elect one person. It wasn't that clear cut, and that's what we're witnessing right now. The vote counting is currently underway. We are hopefully going to get that announcement quite soon, which we will take live. But up until we get that announcement, we'll be talking to our reporter, Dasen Thathiah. He, of course, on the ground there, talking to all of the other parties involved. But stay with us. We're back in a moment.